What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Built Different podcast brought to you by Tucker Speed. Last night, we sat down and chatted with Brady McLean of Go Fast, Don't Die. I was also joined by my co-host, Jason Owens, from here at the shop. Brady is a really cool dude, a really deep thinker, has a lot of really cool stories, and we kind of go back quite a few years through racing and events and stuff and had a lot of really cool stuff to talk about. I think you guys will really enjoy this episode just because, Brady's just one of those dudes that really has a positive message and is, kind of represents all good things in the motorcycling community. Just remember, this podcast is brought to you by TuckerSpeed.com, your one-stop shop for all things performance-related for your Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Before we get going, please leave us a 5-star review and follow the show. Keep this thing growing. Enjoy the episode.
Making power by day, making friends at night. Built different. Tucker Speed.
We're ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
Let's go for it. So yeah, just a quick introduction. Brady from Go Fast, Don't Die.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Do you guys claim that you're from Wyoming?
No.
Try and keep that secret.
Honestly, we kind of, until this whole podcast thing started getting popular, we kind of stay in the background of everything. There is no us. There is no we. People just... If people buy our stuff, they see where it comes from, but they're just like, it's out in the ether.
They just exist out there?
Yeah. Let's Go Fast, Don't Die. And we don't want any people. I always like, not to get right into it, but you know how people go to church and then the preacher does something wrong and they throw out the whole baby with the bathwater. I don't want anything to do with any of it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be the preacher who does something wrong, The brand is beautiful. I'm an idiot.
Sure.
So I want to keep me out of the way.
Yeah, that's probably smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wyoming's home.
That's not so bad, though, And you're are you Casper or?
Sheridan.
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 That's right.
Which is the secret spot in Wyoming. For a long time, we were weren't on the maps in a strange way. There's there's Buffalo. It's half an hour away from us, 30 miles. And Buffalo would be on the map. And they're way smaller, but Sheridan wouldn't be. I don't know who did that, but we owe them a huge debt of gratitude.
And then you got discovered somehow?
Yeah, it's kind of been discovered. Yeah, recently we've kind of been discovered.
Real quick before we get too far into it, what other things would you like to plug besides Go Fast, Don't Die? Do you guys have a shop?
We had a shop.
We're
currently kind of in. We still have a shop.
Okay.
It's just a lot less. It's not a. You're only going to go there if you know us, kind of thing.
Okay. So it's very selective.
Yeah. So we started I think in 2020, which was a weird year to start anything.
Oh yeah.
We started a DIY garage and shop. So there was service in the back.
Okay.
We had a mechanic, and then we had 6 DIY stations that you could go in there and kind of do your own thing. Yeah.
I'm interested because cool. I've thought about that idea.
Here, it would work great.
Think so?
It would at least have a chance of working.
Is it just
in Sheridan where there's 7 of us?
It's seven guys who own bikes and you all work there?
And everybody has their own garage, So it's hey, this is so sick. Anyway, I'm going to go work at my garage because I don't want to pay whatever, $45 a month or whatever it might be, So it didn't work great. It was so cool. And for a while, we just kind of bankrolled it as this rad spot, cool hangout. We called it home, the house of mixed emotion. We're kind of an emotional bunch, kind of a mental health brand as much as we are a motorcycle brand,
Well, that's what motorcycling is, right?
Amen. Exactly.
But... yeah, I've thought about that. I've thought about, I'm always thinking about new ways of adding, to our existing business. And that's been one that has crossed my mind many times. I don't have the space to do it here.
Yeah.
But it's something I've thought about. And it seems like, those places exist around the country.
Yeah. And a few of them
have been successful. Yeah. I just, I never really got so deep into it that I figured out the nuts and bolts of how to structure it and how it works.
Yeah. I don't know how it works either. I know how it doesn't work. So I could tell you exactly how it doesn't. But I just thought our thing was, this is a place for our whole thing is culture and community. And this is a place for both of those things to happen and grow. And this is sort of our soil that we could plant in. So that was the idea. I think I've seen a few pop up and then go away. It's a bit of a tough thing. It's especially a tough thing. We're in Wyoming, like we got winter sometimes like 7 months out of the year. Like it's cold and people aren't really riding motorcycles. And you know how people are they're like, oh, fix it in the winter. And they're all calling you right now. Being like, hey, I'm ready. Can you get me in for a really quick, whatever
really
it
quick
is?
rebuild of, nothing quick.
Exactly. I just have it into you this morning. And if I could pick it up tonight, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I always worried with the DIY space, what happens when a guy brings a bike in and his bike's parked there? You know what I mean?
Do you have liability?
Well, let's say he comes in, he tries to work on it himself, and it snowballs into more work that he doesn't know how to fix, and now the bike's just stuck there on the lift or the work bay or whatever it is. And do you hold his bike hostage until he, let's say the bike ends up sitting there for a month.
Yeah.
Then what? You know what I mean?
Think you'd have. I mean, dude, don't ask me for business advice. I'm not that guy. If you want advice on how to think and how to love people and that kind of stuff, I could talk about that business advice.
Let's just talk about that. Well, we won't talk about business.
But I think, you could love him by saying, hey, man, if you don't get that bike off the thing, you're going to go into a lot of debt. And I love you, and I don't want to see you go into debt. So at home, we do mixed martial arts, and we have a gym, and our gym is in the back of a chiropractic clinic. So David Harbour, who owns the whole thing, he's the chiropractor in front. So he has set himself up a good situation where
brilliant.
People can go in the back and get beat up and they can get way thrown out. And they're like, I'm hurt. And you're like, hey, right up here. So your DIY garage is just an inroad to getting more people into the shop. It doesn't look, looking around here, by the way, you have an amazing spot here.
Thank you.
It's really cool. But it doesn't look like you guys are short on business. Seems like
no,
bikes
we're
are
definitely not
up,
short on work,
But if you get that way, you set up a DIY spot and say, hey, fix it yourself. And then people spend 19 hours trying to do the thing that you could do in 1 hour. And then they'll hire you to do it. And then they'll respect you for doing it instead of being like, doesn't seem like it was that hard. Why is it this much money?
Yeah, you flipped a table on them because you told them it was going to, take an hour. You're going to charge them for an hour worth of time. And they're like, that shouldn't take that long. And then,
let me do it. 4 days later.
Would have been much easier. And they're not pissed at you because now they understand.
No, they love you. They're like, you do it. Then you got some specialty tools. And then they think you're a magician.
Yeah.
And you are. Harley mechanics, motorcycle mechanics. I am not one. I'm definitely that DIY guy. I try to do all my own stuff. I do a lot of my own stuff now, but there's a lot of trial and error.
Sure.
I think that's actually super. I'm stoked to be on this podcast because a lot of the podcasts that go on it, they're just sort of about life or whatever. This is a motorcycle. You walk in here, for anybody who's watching this thing, we are in a motorcycle shop. It smells like motorcycles. It looks like motorcycles. This is the real deal. These guys ride bikes. I first met you, saw you. I don't even know if I met you, but I first saw you and your brother at Mama Tried. I don't know what year, but a long time ago.
Dude, that's interesting.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute, and I remember your bikes, that flat track bike that's in the back.
Out back, yeah.
Yeah, I remember them, and I'm like, man, I don't know these guys, but I would like to because they make dope bikes, and you can tell they run. So, and you guys are still in business, so you guys must
still here.
Must be doing something.
I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, that must have been.
Was that like 17, 18?
17, maybe? 18.
It might have been 17.
That's when we were running out to Milwaukee.
Yep.
We went to Mama Tried 3 years in a row. We went in 17 as spectators.
Yeah.
Okay, so it must have been 18 then because you were racing Flat Out Friday.
Yep. Because the year after that's when we went in and
we went as spectators.
Building it next year.
I wasn't racing flat track before that. And we were like, let's go to Mama Tried.
Yeah.
So we went to Mama Tried. We went to the Flat Out Friday race. I'm like, this is badass.
You're like, you know what?
Going home building a bike.
This
and the
seat is cool, but I'd rather have one of those.
Yeah. And the next year, we were racing.
We were rolling through old Wyoming. Tony
Dude,
didn't
that
like
was a trip.
Oh, yeah.
When I was driving that thing, and he was asleep. dude, it was a snowpack run.
Dude,
I was doing 80.
I was asleep in the back seat of my
like,
own truck. Yeah. He's just doing 80 and it's just like an ice sheet.
My dad is more of a man than I'll ever be. He comes from the old school, and any amount of like gritty mechanic, any of that I've got, that comes from my dad. Mostly, if it weren't for him, my thing would have none of that. But he's dope. But he was driving us out to Milwaukee a couple years ago for Mama Tried. And it's always like that. Every single time.
Yeah,
it never fails to just snow, and you're just doing that whole thing. And
hope the I-80's not shut down.
It's like a 17, 18-hour drive for us. So you guys are...
Yeah, it's about 24 for us, I think.
So I fell asleep at one point. I woke up and we're sideways with a trailer on the interstate. And I'm like, oh, and I like, smack the door, and then Pop's like, kind of, he figures it out, and he's laughing so hard because I was out of line, thinking we were dying.
It's kind of what I was doing. I was laughing. I was like, dude, what's wrong there, T? Go back to sleep.
Yeah, man.
I just woke up. I was asleep. I'm like, and I'm weird that way, right? Because we were in my truck and my trailer, and my bike's in the trailer. And I'm real weird about people driving my stuff. Like, he's probably the only dude I would trust to drive my stuff, right? Yeah. And I had been driving for, I put in 4 or 5 hours. I'm like, you guys, you take a turn. Because we left the night before.
Tucker style.
We left at night. We worked all day.
Yeah.
We left here at like, I don't know, 7 or 8 o'clock. It gets midnight or whatever, and I'm tired. I'm like, I'll lay down in the back. You take a turn. I fall asleep for like 20 minutes. I wake up, and dude's just like...
Let's hammer down, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
We got to get there.
Places to go. Eastbound and down.
Yeah. Which it ended up being good. It's good because we weren't going to leave till the next morning. We left the night before to just get a head start because there was a storm coming. We're like, it's going to be slow traveling. Well, then we ended up breaking down in Iowa.
Good old Des Moines.
Yeah. We broke down in Iowa, spent a half a day at the Chevy dealer to get my truck fixed, but we still made it to the race on time. Mm-hmm. That was good times, though.
That was 18?
That was 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's when I first saw you guys.
Okay.
And I was like,
what were you doing there? Were you guys running?
We had a booth. We had a couple guys racing.
That's right, yeah.
It was our first time coming out, and just like...
Was that was your first year at Mama Tried?
Yeah, it was the first year.
You guys had that Alabama kid, right? When he rocking your what was his name? Oh,
Jason Rogers?
Yeah, Rogers. Because he had the Thoroughgoods, man. I always remember that old boy was running Thoroughgoods.
Dude, Rogers he's always been, man, like, I mean, there are a number of people, and that's why, like, Go Fast isn't about us. It's not about any people. It's not about, there's no patriarch or a hero of the brand.
Sure.
There's just people, man, and the whole thing for us is culture and community, and out there are these people. Out there are these people like whoever you are, there's someone out there just like you. There's someone out there like with a similar story, and a lot of them. And if you're a motorcycle person, and not necessarily that you have to be a motorcycle person, but if you are, you'll find someone else who's just like you with a similar story, who found this as an expression, a vein to bleed from kind of thing. Rogers is one of those people, man. He just since the first time I met that guy, him, his uncle, actually at Builtwell a couple years, the first year at Builtwell. So we just came back from Builtwell 100 race, which is a 100-mile desert race. And they were out there the very first year. Rogers out there basically on his stock Sportster.
Right.
Running through the desert, which is...
It's crazy.
It's gnarly.
I don't think people really understand.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to... But we're out there on we souped our bike up pretty well. We put I want to say maybe the first year we didn't. I can't remember, but at one point we swapped it out with a SXF front end. So we put like dirt bike front end on it. We extended it, but anyway, Rogers
on a Sportster, just
on a Sportster,
so
a Harley Sportster.
Understand, a Sportster with dirt bike suspension.
Right. So we had heavier springs and heavier oil in the front. But Roger's out there with nothing. Like, he's just out there on his and then his uncle, and if you've ever met Unc, he's a big dude, like tattoo artist, just a cool looking guy, just covered in tattoos, always wears the dopest glasses. He was out there, he was repping our stuff too. And he, those are our people, and our people range, there's so many people that we call our people, and those people over there that we call our people, and these people wouldn't call each other their people, right? Like three horns don't play with long necks kind of thing. Right? And that was sort of what our brand was all about. But anyway, he went out there on
why do you think that group and that group wouldn't play together? Because they don't know each other?
Let's get into that in a second.
Okay.
I want to tell
all right, yeah. Go ahead,
Rogers and his uncle. So Rogers enters the expert division. I entered the novice division because I'd never done a desert race. I'm not a racer either.
This is your first year?
Yeah, this is my first year.
Okay.
And so I entered novice division. It's a 100-mile desert race. His uncle's got a pretty cool bike. Like it's pretty much like set up with with like stock parts, right? Whatever you could get for a Sportster, this thing's got it. So it's a dope looking bike. Within 10 seconds of its rubber band start, within 10 seconds of us taking off, this dude named Cliff, I think is Cliffornia on Instagram, if anybody wants to check him out, rad dude. I don't even think I've ever met him, but I just know of him. And he's a hoot, man. That whole crew is a hoot. But like, he goes down for whatever reason. He's, blasts out in front. He goes down, which there's holes out there, man. There's it's the desert.
That's part of desert racing.
Yeah, dude,
it's
gnarly.
not a prepared
You're
track.
not supposed to go out there on a Harley. You idiots, So he goes down, and I'm like, I see him go down like, I don't know. He had to be like 15 feet from me, right on to the left. And then I see Unc hit him and basically just ramp off, and he's doing like a Superman through the air on a giant Sportster, and he is not a small dude. I don't know what
he's a big dude.
He's I don't know, like he's got to be 240, 250. He might be bigger than that. I don't know, but he's a big dude, beautiful man, but big dude. And I'm like, and I like see that happen, and it's like, and there's just like other bikes pile up, and all you see is dust and sand and spit and ass and oil flying all over the place. That bike, there's a picture somewhere that Bill Wells got, and it's of his bike, and it is just absolutely destroyed. And anyway, that's within 10 seconds of us starting, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure 3 people just died, which means I beat them for sure. No matter, right? So
I'm not coming in last.
Honestly, like, I'm not coming in last today, but I was like,
podium.
I gotta chill for a second, It was, it was pretty funny. It was pretty funny. I was actually asking the guy next to me. I remember I was like, how does this rubber band thing start? And then like right when I'm like, how does this rubber band start work? Because I've never seen it before. And then right when the rubber band snapped and he took off, and I'm like, oh, I see.
That's how it works.
So like, it saved my life that I didn't know what was going on, because the whole pack
you missed the carnage.
Went out, right? And I was like, whoa. And it's like, there's so much roost and dust everywhere. So I peeled to this side of it. Patrick Garvin, his buddy of mine, he was there, and he kind of went. I was like, I'll follow Patrick. And if I wouldn't have followed Patrick, I probably would have been in that pile up.
That pile.
Saved my life. So,
well, and part of that is, if you are behind, you're going into this cloud of dust.
Yeah.
Now there's holes and bumps and
you can't see anything.
And motorcycles and people that you can't see.
If you see my start this year, there's some video of it, but like where everybody's lined up. This is a 100-mile desert race. So if you're in a real competitive class, which I don't care at all, we raced I had a really cute Topo Chico bike that we built, old XR500, but we lowered it, and it's terrible for the desert. It would be a fun.
You did that this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's super cute. It's like a cool looking bike, but not a. It's
not like a desert
These dudes
race.
are set up to rip.
I was gonna say, why'd you lower that thing? Just to be different?
Yeah, we all wanted to just kind of like a thumper, like just a rat. I'll show it to you. It's It's just a cool looking bike. Anyway, they started, and I just like turned around and waved at all the cameras, and then went, and I wasn't. So right away you go, and then there's a little there's the hot gates where your numbers count for nothing. So you pass under the railroad tracks, and so I wasn't the last guy through it. So that just tells you I started probably 2 seconds behind this pack, and I wasn't the last guy through the thing, which is probably, I don't know, 400 yards down, 800 yards down maybe. So just tells you just ripping with that pack is not necessarily
the fastest way.
Smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Then they all passed me. It was great. So
no, that's cool. That's a race that I've never done it. I'd love to do it at some point.
Yeah,
I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat.
You should jump in. I mean, Tucker Speed should have a You guys make the sickest bikes, you know. Be cool to see what you guys do with a Harley desert race bike.
It'd be cool.
It's wild now. So now you look at the class. What's this dude, Austin, who's Shook Soda. I keep up with so many, Austin?
Yeah.
I've never met him. I just had chatted with him on Instagram and that kind of thing. But he raced his Dyna.
His Dyna?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another cat. You know that dude who jumped the FXR years ago, like out in the middle of the street, overshot the landing?
Oh, yeah. The one that like way overshot it.
I can't remember his name.
It looks like his ankles just exploded.
Oh, yeah. So he was out there.
Oh, okay.
On an FXR.
On an FXR?
Yeah, which is just like sort of I'm like, man, if we made a movie, like I would bring that character to be here.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just like, that was beautiful. And those guys were out ripping, but both of those guys were set up. Those bikes, I saw.
That Dyna is like
super dialed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And he did it on a budget, like super cool. He like always shows what he's doing and he, kind of brings people in.
Yeah.
He's a good follow. So yeah.
We have him because we're putting a show on this summer or in June here, coming up pretty quick.
Okay.
And he's bringing that bike out for the show.
Awesome. Yeah.
Which will be cool.
When is that?
It's June 7th here in Ogden. So it's a motorcycle / art show.
Okay.
I mean, we're kind of late to the game. I mean, I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but it'll be before that.
Yeah.
But we're still early in planning a lot of it. But yeah, it's going to be cool. And we reached out to him and he's like, yeah, he's going to bring his Dyna out and show it.
Nice.
I hope he shows it like all dirty and like right off the racetrack.
Well, I don't know what our schedule is or what exactly, but I would love to bring. We have our Sportster, that first one that I brought out, and we kind of took it back home and we're like cleaned it up.
Yeah.
We did like a collaboration with J&P Cycle last year
with Patrick.
And, kind of brought it back to life. Like it was just in shambles and like everything fell off and it was wired like together and zip tied together and just like barely.
Well, you could even bring your other bike too, your Honda, because our show is not.
Yeah, well, we'll bring dude.
Because our show is not like a V twin show. Yeah. It's an all motorcycle show.
Yeah.
And we have an off road category, and we have like a metric and a European category.
Yeah, man. That sounds great.
We don't, because I mean we play in the kind of Harley V twin world, and that's like who our following is. But there's the show that we're doing. We want it to be broader than that. Yeah. We want it to be everybody.
Diverse scene. I mean, dude, so what's cool about, what we do and what we've done is we're sort of involved or, there's so many people, like I said, the brand it's not about us. And I would never want to get in the way. I'm a fan of the brand. The reason I'm a fan of the brand is because for me, it's a culture piece. Every single shirt that you see like has a meaning. It has something that it's saying. It's something more. And it's not just like some creative people who are sitting up thinking of like, some cool shtick to put on a shirt. We go out in the world and experience life, and these life lessons come along. We go, hey, that's kind of a core tenet. That's like a big piece. How do we say this thing? It kind of like comes to you and you're like, I put it in my notes, and it's like, okay, this is going to be part of this next line. And each line has a theme. And we're actually trying to say something. The goal would be that people kind of put it on as like a uniform. Like, hey, this is what that's what people do with clothing. They put on clothing.
They want
saying, hey, this is something about me.
This is who I am.
Yeah. Even, and if you wear a plain white t-shirt and khakis, like you are saying something about yourself.
Sure.
And so I've always just wanted to be a brand. I don't care about shirts. I don't care about all that, but I wanted to be a brand that was putting out ideas that would give people could latch on to say, yeah, that's what I want to do. Risk happy. That's like the chapter of my life right now.
Well, and almost inspire them to go out and do those things.
They put on the uniform for the job they're showing up to. That's kind of always been the idea. So it's cool because we've got these little pockets, like we can go to Alabama, you go to Florida, you go to Southern California, you go to Portland, you go to Denver, you go to Salt Lake. and there are kind of go fast, don't die people, you know, down like in every one of them, and they're all different people. This kind of gets back into like the three horns and long necks kind of thing. They're all different people. It's different scenes, but it's like the same people, just different environments. They found a different spot, you know, or they all like pie, but they all like different flavors, you know. And sometimes people, they forget. They're like, hey, we all like pie here. Can we chill?
Yeah.
You know? And so that's always our very first line that we ever put out. The theme was ride whatever. And it just had a bike on it. And bike was scribbled out and it just said ride whatever. And yeah, that's kind of thing. At that time, which this would have been like 2016. Yep. You know?
Is that when you guys, when did the brand start?
It's a little bit of a tough one to answer because it was kind of just like, you know, it was like a thing between friends for a long time.
Okay.
And then in 2017, it kind of I kind of chucked my old life, or maybe my old life chucked me, however you might look at that. But I kind of ran out on a motorcycle and was like, hey, I don't want to go back to doing this stuff. I don't care about the other stuff. I've found people, I've found so much peace on this bike, just, you know, like I rode down into Mexico and I went to Born Free, I went to Texas, I went to Fayetteville, Arkansas on a whim. They have a thing, Bikes, Blues, and Barbecues down there, and I just heard about it.
That's Arkansas. Yeah, I've been there. It's cool.
They have
cool
big trails. So I rode down there from Wyoming. I put on 40-some thousand miles that year on my bike.
Man, that's a good rip.
And we're most of that time is in winter, so it was a lot of riding. It was a lot of places, but I met so many people that I'm like, this is kind of my spot. So that was sort of like, well, you know, we had Go Fast, so we had an agency before then, and we still do have a marketing agency that I'm a co-owner of, and so we'd play with ideas, and the artist formerly known as my mother-in-law used to tell us, go fast, don't die, when we'd leave, when we'd leave on our bikes.
So that's who coined the phrase?
Yeah, the first time that I ever heard that, heard that said was from her. And I was like, I love that. We have to get something made out of that. So we had made a couple of different logos, and they were just they might have been on one or two shirts, because our spot we shared with a buddy who he just bought a screen printing company. And so we shared this area with him. So anyway, he made us some shirts, and it was just a thing for a while. And I don't know how long exactly that was, but in 2017, it was kind of like, hey, I think I'm just going to go ride motorcycles and meet people and live life and be a part of this culture and try to contribute in some way. And the way that I saw to do that was a cultural piece, a community piece, a piece that said, what I realized, because I kind of run the gamut of different scenes and subcultures in moto. I've hung out with everybody. I've hung out with the guys on their cool Triumph with their cool leather vests and their side satchel pouch with their MacBook and their journal, and they ride to the coffee shop, a cafe racer scene, and they're like, hey, I don't really like the guys on Harleys because they're constantly revving these things up, and it's so loud, and it's just annoying, and I just don't like those guys, And then I grew up in the Sturgis scene, where if you're not riding a Harley, you can't sit with us kind of thing. And everybody's making as much noise as possible, and the loud pipes save lives, and that's the whole culture, And so I just kind of came to realize, I'm like, hey, you guys are way more similar than you think you are.
It's funny how they are, but they don't see it that way.
Yeah, exactly. And so my thought was hey, this is something that we could contribute as a brand. We could come in and try to bring this thing together, not talking about. We don't really even talk about motorcycles. If you look at any of our propaganda, you don't really see much. We've built some bikes. They've been relatively hush-hush. We don't talk about them. It's just cool. But we built them to go live on. We built them to go have an experience, to go contribute. That's why I love I love converting a Sportster to a flat track bike, or a Sportster to a desert race bike, or a Sportster to whatever, because the Sportster's always been kind of that universal. Everybody's kind of hey, that's cool, whether you think that's just barely cool enough, or whether you think that's super cool and I'm from a different thing and one day I'll graduate to a Sportster, or I had a guy in Dallas one time tell me that Sportster was a girl's bike, and he like was very adamant that it actually was. Not just, he wasn't just saying like that's for girls. He was saying like that was specifically designed for women. And I'm like, no, man, I don't think so. Like, he was hilarious. He was driving a.
I think people truly believe that.
Yeah, it was. Anyway. So like, I know all of it, right? From the cafe racer scene to the Harley Davidson scene to like the motocross scene. Like, I've kind of just been hung out with every subculture. I've gone and done all that. I've gone to the East Coast, and I've gone to Daytona, and I've been to Sturgis, and I go to Born Free, and you go to the One Moto show, and you see all these like different subcultures of moto, and everyone's pie, but everyone's different flavors of pie. But they think because they're different flavors, they don't mix. And so the idea was, we're not going to talk about what flavor they are. We're going to talk about why. And not just like why, like, well, I like riding motorcycles because it makes me feel good, but like, well, why does it make you feel good? What are you looking for? What are you trying to do? And so our brand has always been about like, it's been thematic. Like, it's been about concepts, like you could go to our website and scroll and stop, and you'll hit something that's about more than just like the surface level, like go fast, don't die. The whole idea, we have a page on our website that says what don't die means to us. And it's far more than just like this cheeky saying, this whole go fast. It's about like, the whole idea is find your edge, find that like place in your life where you feel like you're, okay, I got to pay attention here. I'm pushing like the boundaries of who I can become in every way, and live there, and don't go over, don't go so far that you leave friends behind or you forget what matters or whatever. Like, find your fast. We have that fast as a feeling shirt. Yeah. Like, that shirt has a whole story behind it. Everything has a story behind it.
Let me ask you this, because part of the interpretation that I had, you tell me if I read it right or not, or if it's just open to interpretation, is the don't die part isn't like so much a literal, like, don't die, but it's more like get on a motorcycle and live versus not getting on a motorcycle and just kind of going through life without those experiences, if that makes sense, if I'm wording it the right way.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. Because
I think some people read it like go fast, but don't get in a wreck and die.
Right.
But I didn't read it that way. I read it as like get on a motorcycle and live.
Yeah,
is the way I read it.
No, you're spot on, and I appreciate that. I love hearing what a lot of people, depending on your introduction to the brand, like first impressions, they cut deep. First cut is the deepest. Whoever said that one was right. And that's why these podcasts. I've been doing a lot more podcasts, and I don't like doing the podcast because I don't want it to be about me. I don't want me to be the thing. I love doing the podcast because we get a little bit more time rather than a 15-second ad, which is a lot of people have seen us from an advertisement, that like it looks like you see a shirt, and I'm like, man, you really got to get what's behind this. But I don't want to go out and like, I want people to come find us. We put on these events. We invite people to come join. I want people to go and do. And I don't even necessarily want them to come to our thing. I want them to do their own thing. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's about death in small doses, because some people, they go, no, I'm not going to get a bike. It's too risky, right? And that's where the risk happy piece comes from. It's like, man, what's more risky? You getting a bike and risking like, yeah, maybe you'll crash. Maybe you'll even die. Like, that's a real thing. That's that happens. But that happens driving a car. That happens, that's taxes and death are the guarantees we have in life, right? So, but to say I'm not going to participate in this thing that maybe I feel called to or curious about is death in a small dose. Yeah. And that's what the don't die piece is. If anybody who watches it, if you go to our website, or if you just type in Google what don't die means to us, that page will come up, because we're good marketers, right? And I think that's super important. And I think it actually bothers me. Sometimes we'll get like a email with a return, and they'll have some some complaint. They treat us like Amazon.
Sure.
You know, like, hey, there's a thread on my shirt and it's missing, and like the quality, like they have some complaint that is more about they've kind of been accustomed to the customer is always right sort of thing. Like our stuff's good quality. Like I know that it wouldn't sell, you know, but they kind of, as long as I have this complaint, as long as I act this way, then I'll get my refund and they'll treat me really well. And a lot of times I'll hit them back with, okay, this is Brady. What's going on in your life? You know, like I actually don't want you. Yeah. I've been known to like get into people's whole life stories in a comment section. And people, a lot of times, they'll come back the next day and they're like, hey, sorry, I was having a bad day. I was drinking and I just saw your ad and it kind of made me upset because, to be honest, I wish I was doing what you're doing. And you're like, dude, I totally get it. You're invited. You know, I'll comp you a ticket to Devilstone Run. It's a ride we put on at the end of summer. Why don't you come out? You're invited and I got your ticket covered, right? That kind of thing. And I'll jump in because I would prefer that if somebody didn't understand the meaning of, I would prefer that every customer read that page and said, hey, just so you know, if you wear our stuff, this is what you're wearing. This is not just a cute t-shirt. I don't want to be streetwear. I want to be lifestyle. I want that to be our thing. And if you don't understand what you're wearing, please don't wear it. You know, like I would rather have you not buy it if you're not going to represent it.
Honor it.
Yeah, exactly. I remember, man, like the first year I went to Born Free. I rode down there, straight shot. That was another crazy story. Straight shot. I left at like 9 a.m. from Wyoming. I got into Vegas and in the middle of the night, Holden Pruitt, who is a great stunt rider. He's a mechanic. Do you know Holden at all?
I know who he is.
Okay, so he
another
was
one of those, like, I know him on Instagram, but we've never met.
This is what's so cool about my experience is I was just that kid from Wyoming who's like, whatever, dude, I'll just hit up everybody and see what they're doing, you know, and I did that for a few years, so I know. Anyway, so Holden was awesome, and my exhaust blew up, like in the middle of the night, like it blew a hole in it. And so like 11:30 p.m., I'm in Vegas. And it was one of those years. I mean, it was that year. It was like 124 degrees pulling into Vegas, just gnarly. So he's like, all right, let me see if we can find you an exhaust. I'm like, you think you're gonna find an exhaust at midnight? You know, for a 03 Defender, you know, which is Dirty D. That's my bike. That's my gal. And so he calls Seabear, which is probably one of the best stunt riders on Earth on Harley. And we go down to his place and he's got this, like, you know, he's like, hey, I just took these off. I don't have a bracket for them. I don't have a mounting bracket, but you can put them on there and wire tie them or whatever. So we did that till like 2 a.m, put those on, and then we were leaving at like 4:30 in the morning to get out of Vegas before
the heat.
Yeah. So then we rode down there, which that was an awesome crew that got together as well. Get too much into that. Anyway, what was I talking about before that? Do you remember?
I lost it.
Yeah, I was just entranced in the story, man.
So, dang it.
I guess, what was it?
No, we were talking about the people wearing the shirts. So anyway, we go to Born Free. And I was just going down there to kick it with the homies and our buddies from Canada who I had met the previous year, Lords of Gastown, they're out of Vancouver. I went down there to hang with them and that whole crew. So we get there like 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. and I just fall asleep by a tree. But anyway, that day, there's a bridge that goes across a little. Thank you very much, gentlemen. The service on the Tucker Speed podcast is.
Hey, we try and take care of it.
You're nailing it. Yeah.
It's just cheap coffee.
They had chapstick too, and some Preparation H. You guys are. Thank you.
We got you taken care of. We got you.
So, anyway, there's a guy we have a shirt that says "Safety Second."
Yeah.
Right. Which was
one of the first one. It was kind of one of the first ones.
Yeah,
too,
it was. Yeah.
With the right whatever.
So there's a guy. I'm walking past the bridge, and I was so stoked because we were brand new. You know, I was so stoked to see somebody wearing one of our shirts. And I walked past him on the bridge. He's wearing one of our shirts. I'm like, dude, sick shirt. I was like, you know, in my heart, I was so happy. I was like, there's a guy wearing one of our shirts. This means the world, you know? And I'm like, sick shirt. And he's like, whatever, dude. He's like, excuse me. and I was like, okay, well, joke's on you, dude. You bought a shirt. So like, but then I was like, man, I really don't want, after, you know, as I, you know, I guess became more confident going out into the world and like kind of understanding what this scene is all about and who I am and what I represent. And just like, you know, anybody who goes into motorcycles to some extent or goes into any new experience, you're going to have some level of anxiety or hesitation or insecurity, whatever that is. And I had that. I just said yes because I was, you know, I had met death and was like ready for that. And so as long as you're ready to die, you're ready to like, I'm like, well, I might as well go out on my shield
scares you anymore.
Kind of thing, right? It's not that it necessarily doesn't scare you, but you're like, well, I want a better story for my life, right? And anybody who's saying that, I hope they find our brand because that's all we talk about all of the time. We have a Sunday email that goes out. There's never a sale on it. All it is we sit down and we go, how do we breathe life into people? How do we give somebody something to chew on that might be sustenance this week, right? Are you familiar with our Sunday emails at all?
I am. Yeah, I like it, man. It's cool.
We sit down and we have our own little podcast where we're like, hey, well, what's going on this week? What can we talk about? We spend a couple hours like, you know, whatever, just finding, or we talk about stuff that's come up, you know, because we constantly are saving that stuff. And we love that because it creates an environment for us where we're thinking about our best story. And then we're encouraging other people to live theirs. And so anyway, at that time I was nervous. Like I was new, you know, I'm from Wyoming. I've never seen this many people in the world. I remember the first time I rode into California. It was crazy, man. Like I was like, I'm in California. I'm on my motorcycle. This is nuts. And I'm sitting in traffic, and I'm like, it's getting hot. And this bike goes, vroom. Uh-oh, you can split lanes here. I forgot about that. Like, this is so cool. All right, here I go, lane splitting, first time, you know. And I'm following this like sport bike, and I'm just flying way faster than I had any business doing.
Right?
Because he's obviously, you know, but is baptism by fire, you know.
Just
and
go for it.
Yeah, and luckily I made, you know, it all went pretty well. But that's how you get a story, man. You go risk it. You go risk happy, and this idea that you would avoid that thing because it's too risky. The most terrifying thing in the world to me is getting to the end of your life, and that whole shoulda, woulda, coulda.
I wish I would have. Yeah.
Yeah. And so our contribution, our hope, the whole thing the brand is about more than motorcycles is about that piece, that mental health piece of like, how do we encourage people to like, hey, please, for the love of God, for like life and death, please go live a great story with your life. Please do the thing that you're called to do.
Right.
Right.
And it rings true. I mean, like you said, not even to just motorcycling.
Exactly.
It can be whatever it is you're into. You know?
And that's the thing. Motorcycles that's been that expression for us.
Right.
Right. But again, like you go look, you obviously you're going to see a bunch of motorcycle photos and that kind. You're going to see this theme.
Sure.
But as far as what we're talking about, we're never talking about bikes. We don't really talk about bikes. And we build bikes, and we'll talk about the bike a little bit, but very rarely will we're not talking about specs. We're not talking about, you know, we're not bike builders. We build bikes because that's fun. And
the bike is you know, your way of just living your life.
Yeah, and it's an expression.
And you're telling life stories, not motorcycle stories.
Yeah, that, you know, the experiences that come from a motorcycle, like the places they take us beyond. I think Meta magazine that became Vana. Are you familiar with Vana at all?
No.
Really cool magazine. Those guys are dope. They're out of Denver. Do you know Meta? Have you ever heard of Meta magazine?
No.
So it's a super rad publication. Oh yeah, sorry.
What?
I'll keep tapping. My bad.
I'm bad at it.
I'm a jiu-jitsu guy too, so I should know better than to just keep tapping. Never tap. So that's a rad publication. I think I have a few at home. I'll send you some. But anyway, I can't remember there. They have it says I think their tagline is a life well ridden. And I'm like, man, I love that. And they had another one just like, it was like, actually, maybe it was Iron and Air. Are you familiar with Iron and Air?
Yeah.
Another cool publication. I don't even know if they're around anymore. I've seen so many small brands and like these just kind of niche art pieces or like apparel brands or just brands that kind of popped up. I don't know if we're in sort of like this weird lull. I don't know exactly. And I try to keep my finger on the pulse of this kind of stuff, but I've seen so many drop off, which I get it. It's a lot of work. You know, if you don't love this, if you're not kind of ball and chain to this life and like this is who you are, yeah, it's like a good time. And not even necessarily, I'm not saying that that's not who they are, but it's just a ton of work. It is a ton of work.
I mean, you could be fully committed and living it, breathing it, and still not survive it.
Yeah. Yeah,
because it's not easy.
You can't afford it, you know, in the amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, I got this tattoo on my hand that says the work is never done, to remind myself, like constantly, like you do a show or you do a race or you do whatever, and you're like, man, as soon as this is over, I'm going to rest. And it's just that rest just kind of like never
happens.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you got to come back here and get right back into it.
Yeah.
You know, wrenching, making power, not friends, you know, and it's.
Yeah, I saw that.
On that high a little bit, but
I love the making power, not friends. I feel like we are the opposite. Like we do not make power. We only make friends.
It's funny. I mean, that saying.
Yeah, he gonna tell you.
I don't know, man. I have mixed emotions, and I'm the one that came up with it, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the opposite of what I really feel.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's kind of like, you know, in the performance world in racing, you know, it's not like when we go to the races, we love going to the races and seeing our friends at the racetrack, right?
Yeah,
you know, seeing guys from all over the country and hanging out with them and everything like that. But, you know, I still have mixed emotions on that shirt. Because I feel like it just, you know, isn't a true representation.
Right. Because it has torqued some people off. There has been some chatter with that.
Anyone who is torqued off by that shirt needs to just calm down. You know, it's a T-shirt. It's an attitude for a time. It's something to try on. When you're in the dyno, room, I want you to be like, we're making power, not friends. Like, right? Like, there's this. I do jujitsu and mixed martial arts. Like, I love everybody who does mixed martial arts. I love everybody who I compete with, right? But like in that moment where we're like, it's you and I fighting, like I'm not trying to be friends. Like, you know what I mean?
We're not friends in this moment.
This is an attitude now. Yeah. And I feel like, and this is the thing, man.
But people take it the wrong way. And I think that's the exact, you know, it's a good analogy. It's like in the moment, you know, whether we're racing or building motors or whatever, we're making power.
It's an attitude to try on, and it's okay to try it on. You know, like, I think people think that they have to be all like, I'm this hard individual and I have to be that all the time. And I never break down and I never let them see you sweat and all this. And I'm like, all right, if that's your best thing. But I've had conversations with some of the hardest people that I knew. Like, you know, if you saw them, you wouldn't walk up to them. You'd be terrified to walk up to them. And they are part of communities that are the hardest people, you know, they're part of brotherhoods that are, the whole thing is like this sort of like bravado, this whole like tough guy thing. And there are a bunch of tough guys, like, you know, former military and like just you know, your quintessential tough guy on a Harley. And I've had conversations where guys will break down and like they're struggling, you know, like they're dealing with serious mental health stuff. And they've sort of put on this armor of this tough guy thing. And it's like, man, I'm so honored when I get to have a deep conversation with them. That's what we were talking about podcasts. We rarely get to sit down and kind of have these conversations of depth and substance. We just kind of don't have them. You know, we hang out and you drink beer and you make jokes and you race
kind of
bikes.
Act tough,
yeah. And everything's on the level or like, you know, above. It's like a lot of times you're doing that stuff to sort of distract, and that's okay. Like we all need a distraction from time to time. We all need, you know, sometimes I don't want friends. I just want to make power. I don't want friends. I just want to go fast. I just want to, you know, this thing. And like, that's great. It's beautiful. Go do that. Try that on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, emotions, they're visitors, you know? Like, feelings are visitors. Like, just because you listen to heavy metal once, you know, and you enjoy it, doesn't mean you can't go listen to whatever else. You can go listen to gospel later, you know, like whatever you want. Do what you want. Nobody said you have to. So anyway, so if anyone throws a fit about that shirt, we got to talk about something deeper. We should say, hey,
what's really bothering you?
Yeah. Sure. I mean, man, like we got clowned for the first couple years. It's kind of calmed down now. I feel like we're well known enough, at least in like the niche scene of motorcycles, that people kind of know who we are a little bit. But like at first, like people like constantly, they'd be like, my friend died on a motorcycle. This is messed up. Like it's messed up to have the name Don't Die. I feel like if your friend would have followed our directions, you know, obviously you got to be careful.
You got to tiptoe there.
Yeah, but also you don't, you know. And I think it's important not to sometimes.
Sure.
Because what happens is like
that's what they need to hear.
Yeah, like you start accommodating, like, oh well, I don't want to hurt your feelings, and we start never saying anything to anyone, because the reality is, so like you're like, well, instead of make power, not friends, we're gonna say, make power, be nice. Like we're gonna say eventually, like I'm not gonna say anything, right? I'm not gonna say
because
something
we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's not a great recipe for a good culture. You know, like the idea that we can be honest and we can say things with like, because if people would say like, hey, I had a friend who died, we'd be like, us too, man, we have too, and we hate that. And the thing I hate even more than the fact that they met their end, because we all will, is that there were things in their life that they didn't do for fear of failure, right? Or fear of embarrassment or whatever before death took them, right? Because that comes for us all. Like what we have is time. I got this big tattoo that says invest your time. We've got a bunch of shirts that'll tell you exactly how to live your life.
Clock's ticking.
What?
Clock's ticking.
Exactly.
Start living, man.
Exactly. And that's you know, that's what the brand is about. We don't want people to meet their end. We're all going to do that. We're all going to find, you know, our time. We don't get to check the balance on the time we've got left. We don't get to see how much we have. We don't get to, you know, conserve. You don't get to save it up and say, oh, later. Even though a lot of people think, you know, they live like that's a real thing. Time is the most precious commodity that we have. And our brand is about making an investment in that, investing that thing, because you have to spend it. So put it into something that you're going to be proud of in the end. So if they would actually ask, well, hey, what did you guys mean by that? Or even sometimes they get mad. It's okay to get mad. People are emotional. I've had friends who died, and like, man, if you said the wrong thing in the wrong moment, just when I was in mourning in that like space,
sure,
I might say something that if we talked about it, right? You didn't mean to say what you said, because you're not living the life I'm living. And and then we get into talking about it, and we're like, yeah, actually, Go Fast, Don't Die. That's really cool. And I wish, and I'm going to start paying attention. I also think my grandpa just passed about a month ago now. I just got back from Thailand, and just. Oh, dude, it obviously still hurts, but just like, man, it hurt. My family doesn't die. Like most of my family is still living. And my grandpa had a heart attack on Super Bowl Sunday. And gosh, dude, it just, you know, it's in that moment, you're like, you immediately, everything you didn't do, everything I didn't say, you know, every chance you didn't take is right in your face. And that's going to happen no matter what. That's not something that's avoidable. But there are pieces of that are avoidable, you know, and that is what the brand is about. And if you know, if someone says they get mad because like their friend died, and we say, hey, our friend died too, and like that's something that is real, let's talk about what this means. And then they're like huge fans of the brand. And that's what I mean. If we don't talk about it, if we don't have like, if it feels too scary to talk about the things that are going on, then we're not going to solve them. We're not going to fix them. We're not going to serve them.
Yeah, I guess my takeaway from it, and I can relate because I had a grandmother pass away 2 weeks ago.
Sorry to hear that.
And a lot of those same emotions, those same thoughts, those same feelings of like, I should have, I could have, I wish I would have done, you know, all these things that, you know, rush through your head when you lose someone, right? And you know, in those weeks and months after, you know, mourning and missing these people, we have all those, we think like, oh, we never know when it's our time. So let's live today like it's our last. Yeah. But then time goes on and we get back into our routine and we forget that, right? Yeah. But the brand, but your brand is essentially trying to remind us of that.
That's it.
Every day.
Mm-hmm. Just
without having to take the loss to remind us. You're trying to remind us every day and talk about it. Remember, today could be your last. So go out there and go fast.
Yeah.
Live your life and you know, get those moments and make the best of it.
Yeah. Avoid death in small doses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a daily reminder to live every day.
And that's the whole thing. And man, it's tough, dude. It really is tough. 'Cause you know, like we kind of, like for a while, like we kind of quit putting stuff out. Like we quit for a long time. We were great storytellers. We were really putting a lot of content out
about like trips and
life and like just like goofy stuff we were doing and videos and all these things. And then it felt like it got to this point where we felt like it's like, man, we're being more content creators than we are being life livers. Right, which anybody who has gotten into creating content, that's one of the things I love, man, about podcasts. Right now, we're creating content. We're also living life. We're discussing life. Like we're actually doing something that you know, like there are cameras on, but the cameras are doing the work. We're just hanging out and having a discussion. A lot of times, like, you know, we want to create this video, and I love artwork. I love creation. I celebrate all of that. But when it becomes about like, let's tell the story and then go live to tell the story versus live the story and tell it afterwards, you know, it's such a balancing act that our generation is faced with. 'Cause yeah, man, like, do you watch the sunset or do you record it? 'Cause it's so beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
And
are you,
and what is it?
Are you missing the point by recording it?
Yeah, like, you know,
you're missing out on the moment.
Yeah, and both, right? Dialectics, like it's both can be true at the same time. You enjoy creating this thing, so you want to share it, and that's beautiful. But you do have to check. I just encourage everyone to check with themselves, put their, you know, finger on the pulse of what they're up to, and say, "Am I doing this because I want people to think I had a really awesome day, and you know, my life's the coolest, or am I doing this because I just want to share it because I love sharing things.
Yeah.
Or should I just put this phone or camera or drone or whatever you got, should I put this down and just like watch this thing that is literally a once in a lifetime? This is like every single sunset there's no two the same. You know, for a while I was just obsessed. I'm such a dork, dude, but I was obsessed with sunsets. I'm like, oh, everybody stop.
I love them.
Stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
The sun is going down and we will pause and we will watch. Okay. You know, and then you get like religious about that. You're like, well, that's not healthy either. But just checking. So anyway,
do you feel like? I'm just curious. Do you feel like? Let's just say you know, back in, you know, whatever year it was, that was me, 2017. Sorry, I touched the table. You know, your life would have taken you in a different path, and you know, the brand didn't become a thing. Do you feel like that you're putting that content out there, you know, maybe a sunset or a motorcycle ride or a campfire or a camping trip or, you know, whatever it is you're doing, and you're putting that stuff out there for content. But let's say you didn't have a brand that you were trying to create content for. Do you think you'd still be putting it out there just to let people know if there wasn't like a brand that needed the content? Or do you think you would just put the phone away, leave the phone home, go on my motorcycle ride or go camp? You know what I mean? Like where do you think you would fall?
So the brand really didn't come first. We never meant to have, you know, an apparel company. I'm not even interested in that. I don't think any of us are interested in that. That doesn't sound fun for me. the brand comes first, and the brand is pursuing your best life, your life's best story, the best version. What does that look like? And that's why we stopped a lot of that. It was like you kind of get to this point where you're like, man, like this just feels kind of icky. You know, it feels like we're here trying to, and we create these amazing videos. You know, for a long time we had a full-time videographer, and he crushed it. Shout out Josh Ships. He crushed it. He did a great job. And it just, you know, you could kind of feel like everybody's sort of like, we're going to these, I mean, you know, at one point, like we did a moto retreat. We started this company called Moto Retreat, and we were taking people, the whole thing was there. A lot of people want to go live this life. They want to go have these experiences, these crazy, you know, life-changing experiences, but they're terrified. And sometimes like the details, they don't want to get it all together. You know, they don't want to figure out the details. They've never had to, you know, import a motorcycle into a different country. They don't know how to rent one. They don't know they're scared to travel internationally. So we started this thing that was like, hey, we're going to remove all of that. We're going to put it all together. All you got to do is buy a ticket, take the ride, right? Like, and you can show up. And at one point we're doing this and like, dude, this is the best thing that could possibly happen to us. We are hanging out in Thailand, riding motorcycles, you know, in this beautiful place. But we're more focused on, we're trying to make these, you know, we also had to subsidize those trips because they didn't make money, which that wasn't the point. The point was to live life, right? And obviously that's a balance too, but we were doing like a commercial for a bike brand. We were doing some stuff for them. And and we're like spending more time like making it look like an amazing story than having it be an amazing story. And actually we're all stressed. You know, it looks like we're just having the time of our life. Yeah. And, you know, there were a lot of parts of that. But also, we're all stressed. And it's kind of, that's like, I don't ever want to be an actor. You know, I don't want to be this pretend person. Right. You know, and I don't think that's my life's best story. And if I'm doing that and I'm not telling people, then I don't think I'm doing service to this brand that I have responsibility in. So, so we've done a lot less social media in the past years, which has been cool. You know, it's been sort of like we kind of got to this like hangover a little bit. We're like, man, we just did way too much everything, too much production, too much, honestly, like too many sales. We got to the point where like we have customer service issues where customers are writing back. Because like I said, I used to be the guy who would write back and like, hey, this is Brady, like founder of this thing is writing you back, just so you know, at 11:39 p.m. I'm sitting in my bed and I'm writing to you because this is my life, like because I love this thing. I work for this idea, this muse, and I want to be responsible. I want to do my best for it. So I'm writing to you and telling you, you know, this complaint that you have, this weird thing that your package didn't arrive. That's not, we sent it the same day that we got it. And then we give it to, you know, a delivery service, and you threw a fit because it arrived a day late. And what I know about life is you're not throwing a fit because it was late. You're throwing a fit because however you're living your life, whatever's going on, you're living so close to red line that if a package that you don't, of a shirt, which is not a necessity in your life, arrives a day late, that's throwing you over the edge enough to pause your day, get on your computer. I'm gonna send a pretty nasty email to these guys, send, you know, and like with like and try to hurt us, like say mean things about some things aren't, you know what I mean? Like, and I'll be like, hey, I just want to write, like, ask you how you're doing, ask you what's going on, because in reality, I know that you're not upset about it being a day late. There's something else going on, which makes me think maybe you're not living in a way that is serving your best story. So like, let's talk about that. I'm here to chat. Here's my phone number, you know, and people would get this.
That's crazy.
What they're expecting, you know, is like, oh, we don't do returns after 30 days. Yeah, like, you know, some whatever customer experience thing. And we got to the point where I couldn't do that. There's no way. We had so many emails, and we had all these, you know, we had a stack of employees, and we're spending crazy. I mean, it just kind of got way too big. And, you know, you lose the point a little bit. You lose the heart. And I love growth. You know, I hope every brand with like a good heart grows and gets bigger. But It's that go fast, don't die piece. And you will die if you lose the point. Mm-hmm. If you lose the point of why you started. You know, if you have the most, my theory on success, people like, that's a kind of a, what is success?
Sure. And I wonder all the time.
So here's my theory. I'll tell you.
Okay.
Tell you my story. I think, because I think about this, I've thought about this over hundreds of thousands of miles on a motorcycle, that's where I get my peace, man. That's where I like figure these things out. I have ADHD. I don't know if you can tell by the way I bounce around, but like something about having my hands on handlebars and like my ass planted in a seat and like the scenery is constantly changing. It just like lines up the cogs in my brain to be able to think through things. But my thought on, which is why bikes are so good for my mental health. You know, they're so good for my story. Mm-hmm. My thought on success is I believe that we all have a calling. That we're all called to serve some purpose here on earth. And we don't necessarily know it. It's not like, you know, it's not like this. There's this, I think it's a Japanese concept called ikigai. Have you ever heard of ikigai? Mm-mm. It's sort of like this idea of like kind of what you're called to do. But I really believe in that, that we have something we're supposed to do. And my thoughts on success are if we're in alignment with that calling. So when people think about success, most of the time they think money, fame, power. Kind of those are the big boxes. Mm-hmm. If they have lots of money, we would call them successful. If they're famous, we'd probably call them successful. If they have a lot of power, we'll call them successful. And usually those three things have, if one is there, the other things, at least we assume the other things.
A lot of times you have two of the three, or
whatever,
you know.
Right? And so if someone has some combination of these things, they are successful. And if they don't have any of those things, they are not successful. My big belief is success is when you are in alignment with your calling. So sometimes when people get in alignment, actually I would say most of the time when people are in alignment with their calling, those things follow in some capacity because they're in alignment with the thing they're supposed to do. They find this flow in their life because they're doing what they're called to do. It doesn't feel like work because you're doing the thing that you know you're supposed to. Mm-hmm. Obviously there are pieces of that are work. So there's no amount of money, fame, or power that can make you successful if you're outside of alignment with your calling. And there's no lack of money, fame, and power that can make you unsuccessful if you are in alignment with your calling. That's my big belief about success.
Yeah, but how do you know if you are or are not in alignment?
I think that's the call, but I think, you know, self-awareness. You go, well, who am I? Am I doing something that I believe in? Like I said,
and the problem is nobody else knows it but you.
Exactly. Well, and
I think that all the outside influences are probably telling you. You might feel like you're in alignment, but everybody else is telling you you need a better job, or you need to do this, or you're not doing enough of that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I
think you zoom forward, man. I believe this so heavily. You zoom forward. Okay, the end of my life. Am I stoked that I did what they told me to do? When I meet death, which is where I'm headed, we're all going there. Mm-hmm. When I meet that, when I'm sitting on that doorstep, am I stoked that I'm like, man, thank God I did what they all said I should do and didn't do that thing that really, I killed that thing. Mm-hmm. I think that's death. That's death when people go, I'm called to do this, but it's too risky. It's too whatever. It's too, at least go give it a shot. Like at least, you know, like shoot your shot at that story, and you'll probably find some other version that, you know, something close, something nearby. I think when people
something better than what you even thought of originally.
When people traded in that idea and they go, well, this is a safe. I see all the time, especially being the guy who's like out on a motorcycle for a year, like being the guy I've been for the past however many years I've been doing this. People come up to me all the time that I consider very successful, and they go, man, I wish I was doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you know, trust me, you don't. Like, it looks cool, but like, and it is cool in a lot of ways, but you know, maybe it's not. But I just hate the idea that they traded that in. You know, I hate the idea that they listened to someone else who told them this is a safe route, and they don't feel safe at all. Here they are, money in the bank, Like all the things, everything, all the money, fame, power, whatever, banks, they drive the car they want. They have 2 Harleys in the garage, like all that stuff. I can't tell you that how many people I've met who are dissatisfied with what they've got.
Well, isn't it weird that society, does not promote that? Like society doesn't promote you from finding your calling. It promotes, getting an education so you can get a good paying job and you can, make money and
promotes the material
power.
Things.
Yeah, it's very much that, nobody talks about finding yourself.
I don't think that there's a lot of profit in it.
There's not.
And I think that's the thing.
Society views success as, how big your bank account
money,
is.
fame, power. Yeah. Yes. And so when we listen to externally instead of internally, like that's a natural, we're going to go do that thing. But then when we find success, holy cow, I've done everything I ever dreamed of doing and far beyond. And then we go, and I'm feeling empty about it. I feel great about it. That's just terrifying to me. I hope everybody finds that. Jim Carrey, I think, I heard him say, I don't know if this is his quote, but he said, I hope everyone gets rich and famous so they can all realize that that's not it. I wish everybody could get rich and famous so they would realize that that's not it. And
that's not what they're that's not what they're chasing.
Right. That's like, hey, this isn't the end all be all. I think a lot of people think it is. Even, my life, people think like, oh, that's the end all be all he's doing. And I'm like, no, that's not it either. And everyone's is different, right? It's the same way we all have different tastes. You probably don't like all the same food I like, and we all have something different. We all like these beautifully made creatures that have our very own thing. And so when we adopt the thing the other guy said to do, or that the crowd said to do, and we go, okay, I'll do that because I don't want them to know I really like pink. They all like blue, and so I'll tell them I like blue. That's a small death. That's death in small doses.
Sure.
That's that whole thing. That's the don't die. We're trying to. That's not going fast, right? That's the slow life, right? Or I don't know. I actually like slow life. I don't want to download that, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right?
I know what you mean. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean.
And if people would learn to listen internally and go,
so I think it's hard.
Oh, it's insanely hard because especially now, so when I was in college, I went to college for communications, and we had an assignment that said, document every piece of media from here that you experience from when you leave this building or when you leave this classroom to when you arrive here tomorrow. And I live in Wyoming, so I'm like, that's not going to be a problem. What are like going to see like 3 billboards? And I'm kind of thinking about it when he's giving it. I'm like, it's a dumb assignment. And then I leave. I walk out of the classroom. Immediately, there's 3 snack machines right there. There's Powerade, then snacks, and then thing. And I go, oh, shoot. There are 49 logos just right there, right? And even on the front of the thing, on the front of each thing, so there's 3, and then there's 49 in either one of them, and everyone has a different drink, and they all have a different color that is made to make me feel a certain type of way, make me thirsty. The drinks are going to make me thirsty. They're designing the packaging to make me hungry or make me think that that's the best snack. So I'm sitting there literally having just walked out, because obviously I wanted to do the assignment, right? Having just walked out, and I'm like, I get it. Dang it. Like, most people probably walked by and they kind of did the assignment. I was like, I get. I had an amazing teacher, Mark Johnson, if you're out there. If you're listening, thank you, Mark. He actually got a better job. So I went to a community college, and he got a job at a big university.
Really?
But I got a year and a half with him.
Right.
And I learned so much, and I loved it. But anyway, so I just walked out, and I'm like, okay, well, I have an hour's worth of work here, just literally writing down all the things that I saw. And then I'm writing it with my pen, and I see my pen has a brand on it. So I got to write the brand of the pen down, and like, then I see I'm wearing a shirt, and I've got this Whoop watch. And so I realized, like, I'm not getting home tonight, without like I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I realized, and I got the assignment at that moment. And then I realized, like, what the actual assignment wasn't actually to document all the pieces. It was to recognize how much media you're seeing, all these different colors and all these different flashing lights and all these different, you drive by all these billboards, but then you drive by the Maverick gas station, and then you see don't look at the window, dude, or you're going to be here all night, because you're going to see like 75 different logos and advertisements and this and that. And it's not even just the logos and advertisements from private companies. There's, the thing is like, if you were born this date after such and such. So like, that's a piece of media that's telling you something about how to live. Dude, like we live in this world, and now we all carry around, we don't just see the stuff we're driving around. We carry around a screen that's like, and we can't scroll to the next thing fast enough, and we have these beautiful images and these colors and these beautiful words and all this stuff, and they're all telling us that we should probably live a little different. We're probably not nailing it, because that's kind of that's what sells. Last night I was thinking about this. I was in Las Vegas. My buddy left it.
Imagine having that assignment in Vegas.
Oh, dude, forget it. Forget it, dude.
The guys with doing that. No,
yeah, dude, yeah. So last night I'm laying in bed, and because Brett had to leave early, and so I took his spot next to Rex. I was sleeping on the couch. Anyway, details. But I'm laying there, and I'm like, dang, my lips are chapped. I think I'm dehydrated. We stayed a few nights in the desert, and like, just, you don't hydrate and eat. I'm like, my lips are chapped. I hate chapped lips. Anybody who gets chapped lips, my dad's hilarious. He doesn't believe in chapstick. I do. Shout out Brennan McMurray. He one time had some chapstick for me at a party in Colorado. That changed. I was just up one night and put lotion on my lips. That's not a good idea. Don't do that. Anyway, last night, I'm just laying in bed. I'm like, man, I really need some chapstick. And I was like, a chapstick company. I was like, I wonder who came up with chapstick. They did a real great service to the world. And then I was like, okay, so I believe that. They started by saying, ow, my lips really hurt. Now, the real answer probably is hydration. You should hydrate. But you can't hydrate fast enough to cure what ails you right now.
Yeah, right.
And we want things to be fixed right now. I bet you the chapstick guy realized that real quick. And they're like, hey, I got a thing that can cure you right now. It goes directly on your lips. You don't have to hydrate and wait till your body goes through the process of making sure that your dermis is satisfied. And then I go, eventually you run to the point like, well, everybody is hydrated and they don't need that much more chapstick. Or they all have, they only have this. People's lips aren't that chapped. So business is not that great. And you go, business would be better if more people had chapped lips. And that's where you sell your soul to the devil.
Right.
Right? That's where you're like, I need people to be a little less hydrated, So maybe like as the chapstick guy, I want to invest in an alcohol company that encourage people to drink more so they'll wake up. I just run. This is what I go through at night, and I'm just.
Do you ever sleep?
My Whoop strap would suggest that I do not, dude. I've got this thing, man. It's so mad at me all the time.
Just like, go to sleep, bro.
Dude, I'll sleep, and I'll sleep like 7 hours, and it's like, that's cool. You have 2 hours, like, pretty bad job, D-. And I'm like, that's the most I've slept in years. Like, it's helping me. I have a problem, but getting better. Anyway, yeah. So I think about that stuff, and then yeah, you go, greed. Like, that's when you start realizing what sin is. Like, what this idea of like, why is it bad? Why is this bad? You realize when you really play it out, and you go, well, because the chapstick guy who started out this benevolent creature, he realized eventually, especially when his investors started saying, we need to sell more chapstick. Like, everybody's lips are great.
Got greedy.
Yeah. And then you go, we need people to be more dehydrated.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So anyway.
Going back, I'm backtracking here.
Yeah.
Because I listened to you. You said you rode 40,000 miles in 1 year.
Yeah.
Is that the most you've done? Or have you topped that?
No, I think that had to be the biggest year. But I rode like that. And to be honest, like, I think I added it up at one point. I just kind of tracked. I haven't had a speedometer on my bike or anything that's tracking the miles in many, many moons.
With that, okay, 40K is really good in 1 year on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
How many journals you got? You got to be a guy who writes every day. Because when I go on my road trips,
yeah,
I got journals.
Yeah,
and I got them stashed around my house.
Yeah,
maybe my kids will find them. If you guys are listening, they're going to be out there. How many you got, do you think?
Do you keep a journal?
Oh man. So 1, I'm not that organized. 2, I love, we made a journal. I love it. It's like one of my favorite products that we have. On the inside, it has this really cool piece on the inside that's like, hey, this is just for you. Write down coordinates, love letters. Like, it has just this really cool piece on the inside. On the outside, we made it during COVID. On the outside, it says, what does it say? An infected mind is a far more dangerous pestilence than any plague, which is not our quote. I don't remember whose quote that is, but anyway, dude, I probably have, I don't know, 60.
Really?
Oh yeah. And like at any given moment, there's 13 floating around. And I'll just grab, I'm not an organized journaler. I'm just like grab it, open a page, and sometimes I'm doodling, sometimes I'm writing a whole story, sometimes I'm writing one word. A lot of times, what I did for a long time, because I didn't want anybody to ever read my journal. So I would have this whole, series of thought over a lot of miles of riding. And I would have kind of one prevailing thought, which a lot of time was like safety second or clock stick and start living, or, the stuff that ends up being a t-shirt. But it's like all of this thought with all of these experiences and all these pieces and all this stuff. And I would end up sitting down and writing one little phrase or whatever in the center of my page. And that was kind of the journal entry. And when I look back, it always takes me right back to everywhere I rode that day, wherever I was, in the same kind of mindset, heart space that I was in that day. And I'm like, okay, cool. No one knows what this says. I know what it says. Like, I can remember everything from this. And then there are some that are like, these letters that are like, I'm feeling this way, But yeah, man, lots.
No, that's I figured just listening to you this past, hour and a half that we've been talking, that made deep. I figured you had to be on that road trip, 40,000 miles, man. What you've written down.
Yeah.
Love to read it one day. Check it out. But
yeah, and Instagram was so awesome for that for a while. I would just get on there when they release stories. I would just get on there and be like, all right, well, here's what I'm doing and here's what I'm thinking. Because for me, man, like, this is another thing is for me, I was just on there and I started gaining followers as I was traveling. These in the early days when like followers just like, I don't know. They just found you and like, you're like, I got 800 followers today. That doesn't really happen as much anymore. But for a while it was kind of like that. And people would write you and I'm like, you are completely anonymous. I'll never see you. So I kept just sharing, I'm pouring my heart out on this thing. And I'm like, here's what I'm feeling. And I went through divorce and like my life turned into a country song kind of right before I went on the road. And so I was in this deep space, and I felt like my life didn't have a whole lot more time in it. And so I was in this deep sharing, this deep feeling, and I would just get on there and be like, hey, well, here's what I'm thinking, guys. And I just saw this and I just met this person and whatever. And so much of that is documented and saved by the internet. Whatever you put on the internet will never go away. So it's cool because I can kind of go into like, if you said like, hey, where were you on April, 14th of 2017, I could go find out. And I could probably tell you how I felt that day, which is kind of awesome.
It's awesome and kind of weird.
It is kind of weird, yeah. And it was super cool for a while. And then, like I said, eventually we kind of got to this space where I was like, I think I'm going to do less of that because eventually, you
got this sense of you had to keep up telling the story.
Yeah. And
you were no longer just living it.
Right.
You were doing it to be able to tell the story.
Right. So we're all navigating that. I think everyone's navigating that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, and I think just the self-awareness piece is the most important thing. If what you love to do is get on and go create a piece that's whatever and put it out on the internet and you feel like that serves your community, that your people, whatever, I love that. Keep doing what you're doing and don't listen to anybody who tells you you shouldn't be doing that or that that's lame or whatever. And if that's not what you're supposed to be doing, don't listen to anybody who tells you that that's what you need to be doing because of whatever. I think that's the prevailing thought.
It's true, man. I mean, and I wish people could find that. I wish it was easy because I see so many people, and I'm sure you do too, that just they're chasing something that's so empty.
It's not easy. And, I got this work is never done tattoo. Shout out Drew, my buddy Satsang. He's a musician. This is from one of his songs. But it's not easy, but it is simple. It is simple, and it's not easy. And those two things are very different. Yeah. They sound similar. They're very different. And I would encourage anyone who listens to this, ask yourself what that thing is. What is it in my life that I'm doing that I know that I'm not supposed to be? Mm-hmm. And will I be happy that I continued when I get to the end? And if you go, well, there's something that's going to come to mind right away. I shouldn't be doing that. Stop. Just stop. Because if you don't stop, you'll keep doing it. And it's the tyranny of it's you not stopping is rooted in fear. And that fear is what keeps you stuck. I had this dream a long time ago where I woke up and like my hands are tied to the bumper of this truck. And this person that I had bad experiences with, I saw their feet from under the truck, and they got in the truck, and I heard the truck start. And I'm like, oh, hey, I'm hooked on the bumper here. Like, hey. And then the truck starts rolling, just real slow. And I could see my legs kind of dragging, and I'm kind of stepping. I'm like, and I start screaming, like, hey, I'm back here. And I'm like, there's someone back here. Don't drive the truck. And it starts going faster, and then it's shifting gears. And eventually, like, I can't keep my feet up. They're dragging. And then I see, like, this dream is, like, nasty. It was a recurring dream for a while. But, like, so I started seeing, like, blood, and, like, my feet are just dragging. And eventually I just got these, like, nubs. I'm just being drugged by this truck. And I know I'm gonna die. I'm gonna bleed out, but I'm still alive because my legs just don't happen to have anything vital that's gonna until I pass out from losing enough blood or whatever. But I'm still here, and I'm just crying like in this dream. I'm bawling and I'm screaming, and I've kind of given up hope. And then the truck comes to a stop, and I'm just crying. And I'm like, my legs are gone. Like, there's blood everywhere. I'm obviously gonna die from this. And whoever's driving obviously doesn't care. This was an intentional thing. And I'm blaming them, and I'm saying, why did you do this to me? And I look up, and my hands, like where I'm tied to the bumper, and I'm just holding on to the hitch. There's no ropes. There's no chains. I'm not tied to this thing. I'm hanging on to it voluntarily. Could have let go at any time. That's the let go for dear life is a piece, that's a piece that we put out. It's a common theme for us. And I think that metaphor, the metaphor of that dream, is what a lot of people are dealing with in their lives. They think
they're afraid to let go.
We have this new shirt, actually. It's a Let Go for Dear Life shirt, and it says, what you're holding is holding you. And that's the whole point. Like, they think that they're tied to this thing. They think they're chained to this thing. They think they're bound, and they're being drug along, and they're victims of this.
I love that.
That's
deep.
It's deep, dude. My dreams are crazy. I mean, it's freaking nuts, dude.
That's where we got that Let Go for Dear Life, man. Because I got that. I got that one too.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like kind of like just let whatever's holding you back, just let it go, man.
Yeah.
And go get after it.
We think we're in, like, we either think we're not in control where we are, we think we aren't in control, or we think we are in control where we're not. And yeah, man, sometimes just like that idea that, like, letting go of the thing that's dragging you along, and you actually have the choice to go, okay. Because again, zoom to the end and go, am I proud that I stuck around? Am I proud that I stuck this out? And you might be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, like, I also don't want people like, oh, I got to quit my job and quit everything I'm doing and abandon my family because I heard Brady on a podcast tell me, I'm going to buy the T-shirt and I'm going to take the ride and see you guys later. That's not the move either. You've got to ask yourself, what story will you be, if you're the main character in this movie, be the character that you're in love with. You love that guy. Be the character that when, like, you've got your family, your grandpa and great grandpa hung up here. Like, what's your story going to be when you're the guy up there? Live that story, dude.
Yeah.
Because you're in blank pages. You know, everything ahead of you is blank pages.
I'm curious with your dream, and you don't have to go into specifics or, you know, personal details, but did you ever find out what it was in your life that you were hanging on to that you shouldn't have been?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you feel like the dream represented something happening in your life?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you let go?
I have committed to letting go.
Still in the process?
You know, like, I really believe, I tell people, like, people say, like, I forgive you, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, that's a big thing to say.
Sure.
Right?
It doesn't just happen.
That's a big deal.
Right.
So my thing, or I let go of that. I don't care anymore. Which, if that's not true, you're lying to yourself, and you can't lie to yourself, man, because you need to have a good, trusting, healthy. We sent it on any Sunday recently, or one of our emails, and it was about like self-talk. How do you talk to yourself? What's your relationship with yourself? Really matters, because you don't get to get away from you. Mm-hmm. You need to like you. You need to love you. That's the idea. And so the idea to like say, I've committed to forgiving you. Like, hey, and you can tell someone, right, at any time when you say like, hey, I'm forgiving you, just so you know. Yeah, and you don't have to say, I have forgiven you. It is water under the bridge. It is behind. And you shouldn't say that if that's not true, because you say, I forgive you, and they go, cool, we're good. And you're not good. And there's still resentment around whatever that thing is. The resentment, dude, is poison in the well, right?
So just be able to commit to go through the process, however long it may take, to forgive.
Yeah. So to say I'm letting go, I've committed to letting go of this thing. If I told you that, like, oh yeah, I let go of it, realized like I was holding this thing, like, oh, stupid, I'll just let go. Again, that's simple, but not easy.
Yeah.
Right? So yes, I knew exactly what it was. I know exactly what it is, and I have committed to letting go of it. I can't say that I fully have. Actually, if you want a vulnerable piece, how far are we into this podcast?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half. So there are very few people listening by now.
Those of you that are
to the ones of you who is stuck on, I'll tell you a little secret about me. So, and also thank you for paying attention, whoever you are. I love you. Shop at Tucker Speed. Bring your bike down. It's going to take a while.
Plug, yeah.
And be ready to pay a lot. It's worth it. That's how you make friends. Make power and friends. You tip your local Harley mechanic.
That's a good way.
So my hair, when I kind of set out on all of this, my hair was basically the exact same hair I have now. And it was just short. It was like this long, very short. But it had like this mohawk kind of thing. Did that because it was the cool thing in jiu-jitsu at the time. And I didn't know how to cut it. And I didn't want to go somewhere else to cut it because that felt wrong. And the person who used to cut it, I had some forgiveness to work on. I had some like letting go to work on in that. And with them and several other people. And at first, I just started shaving the sides by myself because I'm like, well, I can do that. I don't have to look like a fuzzball. I started shaving the sides. I started getting longer, and I started cutting. You know, got to where I was pretty good at cutting the sides. But eventually, I was like, man, when am I going to cut the top? You know, when am I going to cut my hair? And I decided, and I'm like, it was a weird thing again because I don't know if you guys have this, but like hairstylists there's a loyalty there. You don't just, especially probably more with women than guys, at least in my experience. But there's a loyalty there. You don't you don't hop, you know? And when you do hop, that's kind of a big deal. You just went through a breakup and you found a new partner and, you know, there's this whole thing that's happening there, right? Well, I had gone through a breakup and I didn't want to cheat on my, it felt wrong to go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So I did it for myself for a while, and I committed to forgiving some people. And I said, on the day that I forgive them and I have forgiven them, I'll cut my hair. So until then, it'll be a reminder that I have work to do on myself to be able to forgive people. And So if you ever see me where like I don't have all this anymore, this actually drives me crazy. This is like not my preferred hairstyle. Like not that I don't hate it.
Kind of samurai-ish.
Yeah, it is. I love that. I love that. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, I just kind of like,
So what you're saying is that you have not forgiven.
Yeah, I've committed to forgive, but I can't say that I've forgiven until like,
So the deal you've made with yourself is you won't cut your hair until you feel like you've kind of gone through that process.
Yeah, it lives. And by now, this is a long time ago. So by now it's been cut. Like it's had, inches taken off of it, and it's been maintained, and other people cut my hair now. I don't shave the sides anymore. I don't feel that loyalty. So there's been a lot of progress there, but it is a reminder that I have work to do, that I have people to love, and it's cool. And I feel great toward those people. Like I feel like that's in a really healthy place. I love them. I have committed to forgiving them, and like it's all good. Like it really is a good feeling. And there are still some residual pieces from all that fallout that I still have work to do. And so it's just a reminder. And it's the same thing all these shirts are. It's a reminder that we have work to do. And if you look at our shirts, if you look at our stuff, every single thing is going to be a reminder in a different theme. It's in a different season of a different thing. So like the goal would be to like, hey, this is going to remind me. And I think if we got more intentional with what we wore, that's a thing we do every single day. We don't get a tattoo that just like says Dickies. You know what I mean? Right? Like we want these reminders of like who we are and who we've committed to being. And I think your clothes do the same thing. And we don't need a ton of clothes. We don't need, we don't need mass stuff. So like if you're a Tucker Speed person, like if you're a customer and this is a place that contributes to your culture and your community and your life is better because this exists, get a Tucker Speed shirt and wear it, and live your life in it. Whatever that thing is for you, like go support what supports you, just believe in that. Like with whatever you're wearing, if it's your local knife maker or ring maker or whatever. And I think we're going that direction. I feel like people are, at least some people, they're wanting less. They're wanting more of less. They want to wear something that is unique and dope and like this sort of thing more than they just want to wear like kind of the coolest thing to everybody.
Yeah, what the trend is. They want to wear what they represent.
Yeah. And brands drive culture. That's always been the case.
Sure.
It probably always will be the case. Companies drive a lot of like, profits drive a lot, but brands drive culture. That's why like, it's so cool that you look at some of the biggest streetwear brands right now, and so many of them come from like punk rock and skateboarding, which that's how I came up. That's like the whole scene I came up in. And it's like, there's such true culture there. There's such like grit and reality in that.
Yeah.
That I love that those have kind of become like Supreme is like sort of the thing. There's a company called Palace Skateboards. It's a skateboard shop, but now it's like a cultural hub. And a lot of people that wear that stuff, they don't skate, however you want to, name 3 songs of whatever, like that whole scene.
Yeah.
Right? But brands drive culture. And I think that's why your brand is important. I think that's why, your brand is it's your handshake. It's your name. It means a lot. You guys, you have your name right on your business. What was it? Tucker Service?
Yeah, the Tucker Service Station.
So
I mean, my grandpas were, representing our name, and my name's still on my business.
Yeah, and you carry it on, and it means a lot.
It means a lot. I mean, it means a lot to me because it goes back, 4 generations of having our name on the front of our building.
So I think when you think about like, what's my calling? Who am I supposed to be? You go, well, who am I supposed to be? Who am I? You have such beautiful examples here, of like, well, I'm supposed to continue this idea in my own fashion. Right?
Sure.
It's not the service thing. It's Tucker Speed now. But this is the thing that I like, but I'm going to be
my version
this
of
person, and I'm going to be trustworthy. I'm going to be straight up. I'm going to be all these things that were taught to me, and I'm going to keep those as core pieces.
Very much so.
And I think you do, man. I think it's really cool. I'm stoked to be here. Honored to be on the podcast.
We were, I was super excited to have you on and hear your story. And I just think, your brand and your story are very inspiring. I think, a lot of times I feel a lot of positive energy coming from you,
Good.
And that's something that I have to work on. Like, I don't feel like I do a very good job of emitting positive energy. Like, sometimes I have a negative outlook on a lot of things.
Sure.
And so, that positive energy, is good for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thanks for coming on, carving a little ways out of your, way home and coming up here to do it. And I would say the brand is just that too. Go out there and be positive and live your life to the fullest. And people should wear that brand and go out there and live their life.
Yeah. And it's, I always tell people like, hey, we always said for a long time, we would always say the tribe grows. The tribe grows. And it has nothing to do, like, you are our tribe. Some people don't wear our stuff who are like best friends.
Sure.
And it's just not their thing. They just don't like wearing kind of this loud piece. Dude, whatever. You do not have to buy our stuff to live what we're trying to say. And it's way more important that you live, because I'm going to die. And way more important to me about my story is that somebody said, like, hey, this person guided me well. This person kind of pointed me in the right direction, then that I made whatever $30 off it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about that. I really we want to be impactful. We want to be a positive contribution. Our mission statement, it said it at our old shop. Actually, it still says it in the building, but it says to contribute to the culture and community that inspire our existence. And that is this culture. That is our culture, our shared community. And that's, from the Performance V-twin people to the cafe racer people to the I'm not so sure I should ride a motorcycle, but I'm interested, but I'm scared because I don't know if I'm cool enough and or brave enough or whatever. Those people to, the elite racing, like racers and whatever. We actually, we had a super famous boxer message us today that wanted some stuff.
Really?
And I'm like, why do you, anyway, but like, that's it, right? And that should be all of our mission statements, to contribute to the culture and community that inspire our existence. And you have a call here, like, and you, by the way, like you said, like sometimes you have a negative outlook. Well, when I first saw your guys' bikes at Mama Tried, however many years ago, I was inspired and I was stoked, and so you have a unique gifting to go build motorcycles and do these things that people look at and they go, ooh, I want to change my life to be more like that. And whoever you saw the year before when you went as a spectator, you go, I want to build a bike like that, right? And if we are to survive, if we are to conserve, or if we're to keep our culture around and preserve this thing, we have to go do the thing that we're called to do. We have to go put out into the world our unique giftings. And some people are going to sing songs, and some people are going to write poetry, and some people are going to build bikes, and some people are going to, whatever they're going to do, whatever your calling is to do. And someone who is supposed to sing songs shouldn't build bikes, right? They should sing their song. And someone who's supposed to build bikes doesn't necessarily have to go out there and be like, hey, I'm Mr. Positive all of the time. And that's not even the best way to say it if it's inauthentic to you.
Right.
I think I think you put so much good into the world by doing exactly what you're doing here.
Yeah.
You pour into the bikes, and there's a bike out there that says "Make power, not friends," and I love it. Like, I love it because that's you're called to put this thing out there, and you love the energy that this brings, and you put that right on the heads, because this is the theme of this bike. This is make power, not friends, and people who are like into that, they feel that thing, they go, this is sick. And then all of a sudden you guys are in deeper community because you've put out a true expression of what you are called to put out, and they feel it too. And friendship starts when somebody goes, you, me too, right?
Right, yeah.
Right? And so you have like created community, and which is the most positive thing. It's way more positive than saying have a nice day to someone. You've created a community of depth to say, I'm not the only one who feels the way that I feel. This person feels it too. So, yeah, you guys are crushing it.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, keep it up.
I still got to work on my outlook though.
We all do. We're all. The work is never done.
Man.
Tattooed right on my hand.
Yeah.
And if I ever lose my hand, I'll tattoo it on the other one.
You seen that dude on Instagram lately? He rides. He might be in Italy or something. But anyways, he's riding like a Yamaha. It's like a supermoto, but he has no hand. He has like a prosthetic, and he's like developing this thing that like clips onto the handlebar.
I don't think I've seen it.
He's like a stunt rider.
I knew a guy who, I don't know, maybe you know this guy. There's a dude who races flat track.
Yeah, dude. That's who I was thinking of, man.
Yeah.
The guy,
That
we saw him at the
rips,
Mint.
dude.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I can't remember his name though, but nicest guy though.
Yeah.
So impressive.
Nicest guy.
Yep.
But yeah, what is it? Is it?
I can't remember.
It's his left hand.
I just remember I lost to him in a race.
He has no right arm.
Yeah.
Just a left arm.
Yeah.
And they put the throttle on the left side, and he twists it forward to throttle it.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
But he's fast.
Yeah, man.
And he's just loving life, dude.
The
And
thing
he's
for
the
me,
nicest
dude, is like how many people think that they're not capable of going and trying this thing out that they feel called to. You don't gotta go win. Who cares? No one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares. And if they care, it's that whole like if they mind, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind.
Yeah.
You know, like if they care about like, hey, you got last place. Okay, you're angry.
You're angry and sitting in the stands too, right? I mean,
or like you might get first place every single time by 2 minutes, and you're still mad, and I'm having a great time. So who's winning?
Sure.
You know what's the real like point here?
Sure.
So that's why that's why we have this snail escargot.
Snail's pace, baby. Snail's pace, and I like that one too.
Yeah.
Just take your time, man.
Yeah.
You ain't gotta get there fast.
Yep.
Just enjoy that ride.
We had this
Take
piece
it all
that
in.
we never printed. It said Snail's Pace Race Team, and I wish we used to have like a race division. Like we had like everything was race inspired, you know. But then we kind of grew. We got too big, you know, to where we kind of couldn't
do everything.
Yeah, we just couldn't like it. Kind of you start getting watered down.
Yeah.
And we brought that back in, and it feels really good. So we have a great crew, and yeah.
Well, you know, the one thing that I found through racing, you know, and I really kind of found it like with my bike out there with the Bagger Racing League stuff.
It's awesome, by the
when
way.
we talked about, you know, when we first were going to build that bike, it was like, okay, we're going to build this bike, and I'm going to hire a professional rider to race it for me. And then I get building the bike, and I'm like, you know, I don't want to hire somebody to ride that. I just want to go race it.
Right.
I'm not a road race guy. I've never
Right.
raced road courses.
Right.
I've never done this, but I'm just going to go do it. I'm just going to race it.
Yeah.
And who cares if I get last?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, and really, I didn't care. I didn't know. I had no expectation of, you know, I could have been out there getting lapped for all I knew.
Yep.
Going into that first race.
Yeah.
Luckily, I've been somewhat competitive.
Yeah.
I'm not killing everybody. I'm not winning by 2 minutes.
But you actually go find out,
But
right?
I discovered that no matter what, people respected that I was out there, whether I was in first or last.
And you know, like you put yourself out in this vulnerable position, right, where you might come in last. And what happens is you might come in last, and you go, oh, cool. Life still goes on. I'm okay. No one like we think like, you know, Zeus is gonna show up with a lightning bolt and rack us in the balls with it if we don't do if we don't crush everything we do, you know. And then when you go out and you find out, you're like, oh, that was actually pretty cool. And everybody came to watch me, by the way. Like everyone's stoked, and this was so much fun. And my life is now better. And like also, I've nowhere to go but up now. Right. You know, just like, man, I that's what I want to. And you're giving that to people, right? So you're able.
I hope so.
Well, yeah, you're able to tell. You not only you're telling that story, but you're living that story, and you're saying like, "Hey, here's my example of how I gave it a shot, and here's how it went for me." By the way, you know, what's the Arnie? Do you know Arnie?
Oh, he's one of my best friends.
Yeah, so
Love Arnie.
So Arnie, dude, he and I way back in the day, we like competed in this. You know, Red Lodge has a motorcycle rally out Beartooth Rally.
Yeah.
And I saw him there, and I met him there, and he had this big, like, super dope Dyna. And we like, you know, we did barrel races and slow races and whatever. And I'm pretty sure the way that I remember this, Arnie, don't get mad at me if I get this wrong, but like
he's a pretty angry dude.
He didn't. Yeah, he is very angry. Yeah, terrifying man. But the first year we did it, I don't think he did very well. Right? He didn't do great on, I don't think, any of the events. And he had this big, really dope dyno with upside down forks and like just this really sick bike. And obviously, like he looks like a type of dude you're either scared of or you definitely want to get to know. I definitely wanted to get to know him. So I'm like, dude. And I got to know him at that time. And then like 2 years later, he showed up and he's just crushing like he's doing pretty dang good, right? That kid. And then the next year, he's doing like 12 o'clockers and like he's got his whole crew out there. Everybody's doing wheelies. He's outside his tattoo shop, just like in this, like on the size of this table, he's doing Harley wheelies, you know? And then I see him racing down in California, you know, and like, dude, what's up? We met in Red Lodge, you know, like, and over the years, like, and then last time, I think last year, I think at Sturgis, we slow raced, like, which is one of those just biker games that, right? And that's usually the thing I'm pretty good at. And I'm pretty sure I beat him at that in years past. And dude, I like got to the end of the thing and everyone else is off the track. And I like look back at Arnie. He's still at the starting line. There? Just like, you know, like, just like, I'm like, bro. And that is a dude who just took a shot on himself. He's like, I'm going to try it. Yeah. I'm going to go for it. Yeah. And it wasn't, he didn't show up the first day, just had the natural talent and had all the natural ability, right? He showed up year after year and time after time and spent all the time with no one appreciating, you know, I'm sure he freaking fell over 1,000 times. Like no one cared for a long time. And then all of a sudden he's the man, you know? Yeah. And he was the man the whole time. He just had to choose to be in the becoming, right? I respect him so much. I love that guy so much just because every time I see him, I'm like, it just brings me like joy because I'm like, this guy chose himself. Yeah. You know, he chose
he is true to himself.
Yeah. And he chose his own best story, you know, and you can tell, obviously, like he's got face tattoos and like you can tell this guy didn't show up to the world and go, I want to be like everybody else.
No, he listened internally.
Yes. Yes. And we can all take a lesson from Arnie.
For sure. And I have. Yeah. I have, dude. And through all of this, you know, and everybody that I've met, like he is right up there. Yep. You know, that whatever it is that motorcycling has given to me, you know, that friendship is one that I, you know, am thankful for. Yeah. 'Cause, you know, he's inspired me and, you know, and I'm still trying to get him to come on the podcast. Yeah. But he doesn't. You know, he just doesn't like to talk about himself at all. Right.
You know, well, we'll talk about him, Arnie.
And
you're crushing it.
Yeah,
good
he's
job.
killing. And he really, I mean, it was the same thing when we went bagger racing. Like he, you know, we showed up at the same race that first year, didn't know what to expect, and we both finished like mid pack. Yeah. And we kind of grew, you know, through, you know, kind of learned it together. Yeah. And just become pretty good friends.
Yeah, and that's it, man. That's community.
And I wouldn't trade that for anything, man. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
And these are the stories we have to tell, you know, because there are so many. I guarantee you, there are so many Arnies out there, right? Yeah. Who should be. He just hit the gas. Whatever it was, he made the decision. Like, I'm going to be me. I'm going to do my story. I'm going to live like this. And now he has this amazing, I'm sure he will live an amazing life after this. And if it all stopped right now, bravo, right? Yeah. Hats off to you. Good job living your life and just being the person that you were called to be. You weren't perfect at it at the beginning. There was a lot of failure and trial and error and all of these things. And now look at you. Like I'm certainly inspired. You're inspired. Like anybody who pays close enough attention. And he's not a real loud guy. And some people aren't, that's not your call. He inspires me, right? And then I go get loud. I'll go write something. I'll go like come up, you know, and I'll preach. I'll go on a podcast and say his name. And even if I don't say his name, I'm talking about that character, that archetype, and encouraging other people to espouse that because it's anyway. So,
you were saying, you know, there's a lot of other Arnies out there. You ever think
a lot of potentials, right? Who aren't pulling the trigger.
There's how many Arnies are out there maybe sitting behind a desk in some 9-to-5 job, afraid to listen internally and go out there and live their life and do their thing.
And that may not look like I realized a few years ago, like 9-to-5 gets so punched in the face.
Yeah.
And I think some people, you can live a 9-to-5, you can work a 9-to-5, and that can be beautiful. Mm-hmm. That can be so good for people. I've seen a lot of people quit that and move into a van because someone else told them to. You have to listen to yourself.
Sure.
So yes, but maybe what that looks like for them is they should build a bike. Maybe they should build that car. Maybe they should paint that painting. Maybe they should go on that road trip. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's something very simple. They should take a weekend and do nothing. Mm-hmm. Whatever that thing is that is, what it is, because if you're listening to this, especially by now at a minute 50, whatever that says, hour 50, whatever. When we say that, something comes to mind that you feel called to do and you haven't done. Do that thing, dude.
Do it. Well, and you're right. Maybe I never really thought about it. 9-to-5 does get a bad rap.
It does, yeah. It gets punched in the face, and I feel so bad because some people should. That's a great setup for some people, right? And a lot of times it's 8 to 3 now. Some people work remote. Very cool.
Yeah, I got it. I mean, I have a perfect example. I mean, I have a good friend who used to have a shop here in Ogden. Used to work on bikes, build bikes, all this and that, and just closed his shop down. Has a 9-to-5 job working in a factory.
Yeah.
Still works on stuff, out of his home shop, but he does it very selectively and he enjoys what he's doing. Yeah. And he ditched the grind of, having to run a shop. And that 9-to-5 helps him pay the bills, and then moonlights in his garage, works on,
and he's probably stoked,
and he's loving life. Yeah. And he's at the the soccer game for his daughter on the weekends and all that, what I mean? And exactly. He found his way.
And that's the thing, man, is like it. So I, for a long time, I was preaching against the 9-to-5 thing, go mm-hmm. pursue your life, because it felt like that was the demon I had to slay. That was the dragon I had to fight. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I realized now I'm saying, hey, I'm demonizing this thing and saying, don't do that, do this, as if everyone's call is the same as mine.
Yeah.
Right? Because for me, a 9-to-5 is not my thing, right? I am cursed with the whatever that I gotta go do my own thing. I would get fired at a 9-to-5, mm-hmm. They would let me go because they'd be like, hey, you gotta pay attention, dude. And I'm like, I can't pay attention. I'm dreaming, imagine if we did this thing and, whatever. We could paint this wall blue. And that's my thing. And now I'm projecting my thing, and someone else who has a 9-to-5, they go, oh, maybe I'm not happy, right? Which they should ask that, but they shouldn't ask anybody but themselves. So anyway, I always try to throw that in there, because 9-to-5, what it really means, what we're really saying is if you work a job you hate, and 9-to-5 is kind of the standard thing. But when people hear that and they go, oh, I work a 9-to-5, am I an idiot? No, you're not an idiot. As long as if that thing is providing you with the means to live a life that you're going to be proud of, continue
and do it.
And but pull the trigger on whatever that thing is, whatever came to mind when we said that.
I mean, I traded a 9-to-5 for a 8 to midnight.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd go back to working in a dealership,
yep.
clocking out and going home.
Yep.
But that wasn't fulfilling to me.
It's not who you're called.
I work way more hours now.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm happy.
Exactly. And that's what I mean about answering the call, right? And what happens is, if you don't answer the call for long enough, the phone's ringing on your life's purpose, on that thing you're mm-hmm. supposed to do. The scariest thing, and this is death. This is really the don't die. This is really the die and go fast, don't die. The phone stops ringing. The dream dies. It goes away. Mm-hmm. You don't feel inspired. There's nothing that really could, and you're just a walking body. You died at 20 and you lived 55 more years.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for anybody. I think,
I mean, I did it. I mean, I stepped away from here for, I think, about a year and a half, went and did that 9-to-5. And man, money was good, but I was not challenged. I was not fulfilled.
Yeah.
I quit. T even reached out. He's like, hey man, what you doing now? And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. He's like, you want to come back? Man, I did. And you know what? I don't ever see myself leaving because this is doing this. It's what I love.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, having that grind and that job that you really hate, man, it's not fulfilling. Man, it doesn't. Man, I mean, I don't even know where I was going on that one, but
it doesn't honor.
It
doesn't honor your time, right?
No,
because
man,
you have what we have is time, and we have to spend it. So we should invest it on a thing that makes you feel like you're a part of something.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like whatever that thing is you're called to do. And some people are called to whatever,
Right.
you know. And if you love it, keep doing it. And if you don't love it, find a way out.
Well, and I think that, you know, the other thing is that calling, you know, we hammer home, like, quit your 9 to 5 and go do your own thing. That doesn't mean you have to be self-employed or work for yourself. Just go find whatever it is you're passionate about. You can be part of a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as you feel a part of that and you feel like you're contributing and you're being fulfilled by doing whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, I'm guilty of being like, you know, go out and do your own thing. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to go figure out a business to run.
Well, you know your thing, right? Like, you know your calling. You're like, and
like we talked about, mine was I wanted to put my name on the front of my building.
Yeah.
And I you know,
dude, it's
you
awesome.
can see why I felt that way.
Anybody who hasn't visited Tucker Speed, show up to Ogden, not Salt Lake City.
Ogden's way better than Salt Lake.
Yeah. It was anyway, awesome spot. This place is really, really sick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this podcast got way more self-helpy than motorcycling, but you know, that's cool. I love it. I think I really dig it.
Yeah.
You know, because
I listen to
motorcycles, you know, I've always said motorcycles are not just a vehicle. They're not just a mode of transportation. They're something that moves us through this life and gives us experiences and moments. And I think that the Go Fast, Don't Die brand aligns with that. And I think it's true. I think it's, you know, a beautiful thing. That's how I feel about motorcycling. I build motorcycles, and I enjoy building them.
Yeah.
It's what makes me happy.
Yeah.
But I also enjoy, you know, the places that they've taken me.
Yeah.
And not just physically riding the motorcycle, but just, you know, going to shows, going to races, going to rallies, whatever
and
it is.
metaphysically, you know, the way that you feel, you know, when you're like, hey, I'm out on this bagger that I've built and now I'm racing.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would do that. And I had this thought that I was going to hire someone else, and now I'm in the seat. And you just, like, you know, your heart smiles, you know, before your face does, you know? And I just want that for everybody. So bravo, like, you are living the brand. You're living and breathing life into the brand. Has nothing, like, we don't, Go Fast, Don't Die is like not this thing that anybody owns. It's this idea of pursuing your story. And regardless of what you wear, you know, what your shirt says, like, whatever, if you're living in a way that, and even if you don't ride a motorcycle, if you're living in a way where you feel that thing, you're like, I'm in alignment. I've chosen my best story, whatever that is, then that's it.
Then you're winning.
Yeah.
You're winning.
Yeah, and you're doing it. And your name is on the front of the building. And we see these guys up here. And one day you'll be one of the guys up there. And I'm honored to share the space and time, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome.
Man. Want to just say thanks for coming on. This was also an experiment, having Jay as co-hosting. I hope it becomes a regular.
Crushed it.
Yeah. I like having an extra, you know, an extra guy here.
Dude,
I kind of like it.
Too many questions I got for you, man. We're going to have you back.
No, I would
ask some questions, man.
I'd love to have you back as a recurring guest. You know, at least make it, you know, a stop once a year at least, man.
I'm all in. I think, you know, we said at the beginning, like, oh, unless we run out of stuff to talk about. I'm like, man, that's never.
We'd go another 2 hours.
Yeah, and we could talk. We could definitely talk more about motorcycles too.
For sure.
I have a bunch of them, and and I think you guys could contribute.
We could definitely go down that, but we'll save it for a future podcast.
I love it.
I would love to have you back.
Yeah.
You know,
We'll
you're
do
in
it.
Wyoming, so I know you're passing through here.
All the time.
But yeah, we'll do it again. Do you want to just, let people know where they can find you, follow along?
So if they type in Go Fast, Don't Die to any of the internet machines, you'll find us.
Okay.
Any social media, all our handles are Go Fast, Don't Die. It's gofastdon'tdie.com. You can find us there, man.
Right on. Thanks, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Pleasure.
Oh yeah.
Pleasure. Great, Jordan. Gang. I'll be back.
Hell yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. Heck yeah.